All right, this is our last stream for tonight. We're going to see what we can do with this dead iPhone 7 Plus that I think has a VCC main short. We haven't seen a whole lot of 7s and 7 Pluses come in for data recovery, so this device is one of the first ones that I've seen with a VCC main short. The device seems to be pretty well protected from water. I'm not sure if this one had a report of water or not. Doesn't turn on after being dropped. Tried new screen, battery, data recovery needed. And he thinks he knows the passcode, so we'll see. All right, so here's why I think this one has a VCC main short. When I originally connected some DC power to the battery connector, then I saw a high current consumption. For iPhones, that generally means a VCC main short before prompt to boot. So the support that we have for the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus is a little less than what we have for some of the other devices. So let's take a look under the microscope at this board. So we will take a look, and I've already desoldered the shields. So I don't really see any evidence of water. That light pink on the sticker is probably just from, alcohol cleaning around here. I took off the shield up here, and the bottom shield here on the bottom of the board. We don't see any evidence of water. I don't know what that is. But we don't see any corrosive damage from water in any event. All right, so you see here that I have soldered a wire to this cap, and this is a VCC main cap. So I'm going to use my multimeter, which I don't know if you'll be able to see or not. We might have to go with the good old truss-based multimeter. Let's see, can I make it so that you guys can see the multimeter? Oh, I don't know if I can or not. If I stick it here, you might be able to see it. Maybe. A little dangerous. It's gonna fall down, definitely. Definitely gonna fall down. All right, we'll see. We'll see if it knocks me in the face or not. And let's check. So if I put a probe on ground and I touch the VCC main line, I hear a beep, and I see diode mode reading is 0.001. And on the ground side, so we can hear that VCC main is beeping on both sides. So that tells us that we do have a VCC main short, and I've soldered a wire so that I can inject current on VCC main. Now, one of the things that I want to kind of point out when you're troubleshooting VCC main shorts, and we've talked about this before, is if you inject current down at the battery connector or use DC power supply with the battery cable and you inject current at the battery, then what's going to heat up is the little MOSFET that connects battery VCC with VCC main. That's always going to heat up. That guy doesn't have a path to ground, so we know that he can't be the wire to ground that's causing the line to be short to ground. So that's a bit of a red herring. So we're going to skip that, and we're going to inject power to see if we can use heat to find this short on an area of the board that's closer to the end up at the top of the board, and that's why I chose this cap here. All right, so you can see my little wire. So for an iPhone, I'm going to use the thin, regular old plain magnet wire. So I'm going to go back to this so you can see our DC power supply, and let's see what happens when we connect the red probe to that shorted line, and the black probe I'll touch anywhere on the frame to give it a path to ground. All right, so let's see what happens. So these cables are a little bit finicky. My alligator clamps they're not as grabby as they used to be. So I've connected a red probe here to ground. So that's my wire on the red probe. I'm gonna leave that off to the side. And then when I touch anywhere on the frame, I'm gonna complete a circuit. And we will see when I touch that ground, look at the DC power supply. You can see that it's consuming current. So let go, nothing, and as soon as I give it a path, I see that current consumption. So that means we have electrons flowing through that short, and at that much current consumption, nearly 2 amps, we should be able to find some heat on the board. So I'm going to use freeze spray to see if we can find where on VCC main is the source of the heat. Now, this can be a red herring, and this can lead you into trouble. So you don't see me use a lot of freeze spray on this channel. But it's good for a really strong short like this because it will highlight a bad actor, like a cap that's become a wire. The caveats with it are that sometimes you'll find something like the PMIC will heat up, even if the short is really some cap at a distance. So you have to just know that whatever heats up isn't necessarily the cause of the short. It's just a tool. It's not 100%. And also know that if you're doing things like heating up the board with soldering and then freezing it down and then injecting current and it's getting hot again really quick, that freeze thaw back and forth is really stressful to the board, and you can end up creating a PMIC fault. The PMIC itself can just fail, or some other chip can fail just from that stress. So you want to be judicious when you're using freeze spray and try to limit that. All right, if you use freeze spray, can you also try the IPA2 and see if that works too? So there's lots of methods to detect heat. My favorite method is using my face. This board is covered with too much flux for that to really pinpoint, and I wanted to just sort of use freeze spray on this particular repair because I think it's going to show us where this bad actor may be. We don't know if there's only one bad guy or many, or if it's within a chip that we can't replace. We don't know. Can you use just alcohol and see it boil? Yes, if you have a really strong short. So this one may also boil alcohol, but that is a little bit harder to really identify. This, I think, is a perfect case for freeze spray, so we're going to go with that. All right, so let's go to the microscope so that we can see this entire board, and I'm going to just put freeze spray all over this side of the board. And when you blow on it a little bit, that tends to make everything freeze up. And it just blew it clean away. All right, let me hang on to the end of the board here. All right, so now we can see a frozen tundra all across the board. Let's get this bottom up a little bit. All right, that should be good. Now we'll work quickly, and I'm going to touch my alligator clamp to the frame, and that I can see my VCC main short is present because I see the current consumption immediately on the DC power supply. So I'm going to touch it to the frame here, and now we're just going to look around and see if we see anything that heats up. So the short is active, current is being consumed, and we're looking for some kind of a hot spot. We're looking for a hot spot. All right, so that seemed a little diffuse, so I don't see anything that really jumped out at me. Let's try that again. And this time I'm going to clamp my alligator clamp so that I don't have to hang on to it, so that I can kind of patrol around a little bit. All right, so now we've got current running in this board, and we are looking around to see what gets hot. So when we see the wire itself will get hot, that doesn't really help us that much. And it could be on the other side of the board. We don't really know. All right, so we've got nearly 2 amps going into this board. All right, let's check the other side of the board. So we're going to flip this over and see if we see a hot spot on this side of the board. I'm going to switch out my freeze spray because that one's getting low. And we're going to try another one, and we'll check out this side of the board. All right, into professional data recovery of mechanical drives. All right, so now we've got some freeze spray on the opposite side of the board. Let's let that get nice and chilled out. All right, so I'm going to connect DC power. Ready? Go. And we're just looking. So we've got 2 amps going into this board. And we're waiting to see. I can't zoom out any more than that, so I have a little bit of a better view actually through the microscope than you do here. All right, right there. That guy is melted, but look at the surrounding area. The surrounding area is still cold, so I know it's not just from the wire. So that is a tell. Let's see that again. Let's put some freeze spray back in that spot. Now let's try to identify exactly which dude in that area is the guy that gets hot first. All right, we have 2 amps going into the board, and now we're going to really drill down right here on this spot and see what we can see. So it's all pretty cold. We're looking right there in that spot to see if we get a hot spot there. Frozen tundra. All right, so across the entire board, everything still looks pretty frozen. There we go, right there. Bingo, that guy. That guy is hot, and we can see that the rest of the board is still frozen. All right, so that's our answer. So now, what do? We are going to check to see whether or not this guy is on our shorted line. So first we'll check in diode mode to say, hey guy, are you on the line that's short? In which case you should beep short. How about your buddy? Also on the same line. And how about you? Nope, not on the same line. So does that mean both of these caps are short? Nope, not necessarily. They could be. it's like a Christmas tree light strand where there's one bad bulb. So this could really be anything on the VCC main line. Now, our information from the schematic in ZXW is a little bit limited compared to some of the other models. But if we were to look it up, we would find that that guy is on VCC main. All right, so we need to take him off. So how are we going to get this guy off? Because he's surrounded by underfill. So that's a bit of a challenge. We need to get him off without bothering any of these chips that are also underfilled. So that's a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to use the Jessa's crank on the board method. So I'm going to use some low heat to kind of soften up that underfill, since this board is quite cold right now. So low heat, that's really not going to bother anything. Yeah, I'm going to use the 551 cap removal method. But first, let's kind of dry this off. I may sacrifice both of these caps just for clearance. In fact, I think I will. Now this is a cap that I haven't dealt with before, so he's not one of my buddies. So I don't know how easy or hard it is to get him off the board. But with all this underfill in here, it's a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to take this guy off first, just because it's easier to get to. Alright, I'm going to see if I can grab a board holder that might fit him a little bit so that I can get a little bit of, whoa, get a little bit of torque. Alright, so we're working here in this spot. And we'll use some more low heat. So that we can try to get the cap off without taking out everybody. Now a damaged cap usually has poor connection to the board, which is why this method works. So I'm just applying some downward pressure here. Now let's turn that and try to see if we can pry him out. Now these adjacent coils are tough. They don't really care if you ding up their housing a little bit. Alright, so let's see if we can get him out. And if I look really closely, I can see some discoloration on that cap. And possibly also his neighbor here. Just ditch the board holder and get my wire out of the way. There we go. Plucked him off. Alright, so I'd like to interrogate him just for fun, but he seems to have flown away and has left the building. Coward. Alright, so let's go back and see if we still have a short on this line, meaning we've got some other problem, or if that short has been resolved. We can try to test right here, or we could go back and test anywhere else on VCC main. All right, so diode mode reading is now 0.327. And the other side should be ground, which means this cap is fine at 0.332. All right, so we have solved a problem on this board. We have found the cause of this VCC main short, and we've relieved the short by getting rid of that cap, which had become a wire. So now let's see if that was the only problem on this board or not. I have no idea. So let's go ahead and back it up and take off our wire. Move these freeze sprays out of here. All right, so now I don't have right now a connector for the battery for iPhone 7 Plus. So my option is to just use a battery and just see what happens. Let's see if we have solved everything. If that was the only problem, then it might boot. So I'm going to put on a charge port. So this is a known good charge port. I'm going to put on our cracked screen test screen, and we'll see what we have. See if we're going to get lucky. All right, so I've got screen, I've got charge port, and now I'm going to connect this battery, which I think is at about 3.8, so it may not be quite enough to boot. Now I'm going to prompt it to boot with USB. And my first clue is going to be, what's the behavior on USB? All right, so on USB, my first clue, wake it up, USB. I see that USB is showing normal charging current, so that's a great sign. And on the phone itself, I see an Apple logo. So there's an Apple logo, and we'll see whether or not it boots and if we can then have a path to data. So the iPhone 7 Plus and the 7, if they know they don't have a home button and they are sensing sensor input that's not there, it takes them a long time to boot. So we'll see whether or not this thing is able to boot. Underdog report, I found Underdog. Guess where he was? He was at the dog pound. So he was picked up by somebody who I don't know. He did spend one night out in the wild, poor little dude. And he was picked up by somebody and taken to the Humane Society. And he spent the night there on Saturday night. And then we figured that out with social media, and the community all kind of helped out to point us to where he was, and we found him and went and picked him up and had a big happy reunion, and then we took him home and gave him a big old bath. So the phone is still pulling normal charging current, which is a good sign. Yay! And I got to the lock screen. Just want to see if this guy's passcode is correct. Oh, nope, he gave me a 4-digit passcode, and let's see if it does have touch. It does have touch, so we will be able to get a path to data. I will see if iTunes detects it while we're here and have it booted. iTunes detects it. So there we go. Yep, this sees the phone in normal mode. So that means this one is solved. So we solved this iPhone 7 Plus completely dead phone by identifying through DC power supply that the original fault is a VCC main short after drop, and then we used freeze spray, which pointed us to a specific cap. Now we injected freeze spray at the end of the board on a VCC main cap at the top. That way we didn't inject it through the battery connector and just see the VCC main battery VCC MOSFET that would heat up. And that's a big red herring for a lot of folks. So if you use freeze spray, it's a fantastic tool. It made this recovery really quick. It pointed us to exactly the right cap. It would have been really hard to find that otherwise. But just know that it can it can cause heat stress damage, you know, cold shock to your board, and that can damage, and I've seen this happen. It's happened to me before, where a board will not have a PMIC fault, and then after freeze spray it does. And then I've also seen many times that freeze spray will either just not show you anything, or it will show you the wrong thing. So if a chip is heating up, before assuming, hey, it's got to be that chip, sometimes it's the chip, you have to first look around and see if you can find, is there a section of that chip that's heating up, especially when the PMIC is heating up. Then let that tell you which line, let that be a clue to find which line. Then investigate the line. Look for guys that look like they have a physical disturbance. This cap, with inspection, it had a discoloration, so it really kind of would have jumped out if you were looking for it. And then you kind of file this away in caps that are on your shit list. So this cap is now on my shit list. The next time I see a VCC main short in an iPhone 7 Plus, I'm going to look to see, is this guy just a bad actor who tends to fail? And as you see more phones and do more work, you'll start to notice patterns, and you'll kind of have a collection of bad actors, so that what once was a big long rabbit hole can become a really quick repair. That's all I have to say about this one. This one looks recovered, or recoverable once he gives me the passcode. So I'm going to read some chat here, and then we will be done. This is probably the easiest repair for Jessa. Yes, how many volts were you injecting? That's a good question. I don't go over the battery voltage. So the battery, the voltage that this line is expecting to see is battery voltage, which is going to be a maximum of 4 volts, which on my DC power you can see that we injected 4 volts. So I don't go over that. If you do, you're injecting a voltage into a line where the caps on that line are rated, if it's an iPhone 6 or 6S, for 6.3 volts. If you put in 7 volts, you're going to start blowing caps down that line, because they're not meant for that to handle that kind of pounding of 7 volts on them. So stick with your battery voltage if you're troubleshooting a VCC main short, or whatever line it is that you're injecting. You should know your line and know what that line is rated for. Let's see what else you guys are saying. iPhone 7 fixed, not in the garbage, all fixed. Yes. USB HDMI cameras on eBay, not sure what that means. Frame rate is what I've been shopping by. She should chip Underdog under fill with a Mason chip. That's pretty funny. No home button, slow boot, yes. Underdog is not chipped or tattooed, but he also is almost never more than 5 feet away from me, which is why him getting lost was really rare. So Underdog has been hanging out with Mark, and Mark has a dog, Bear, that's a big Labradoodle, a big bounding dog that likes to wander, and Underdog likes to follow. So he followed Bear and then didn't come home. All right. Hi, Jessa. Oh, Matt W, this is your phone. What is your passcode? Tell me, because I want to recover it, because I want my parts back. If you tell me your passcode right now, I can recover it right now. And then I can, by the way, it's a 6-digit passcode. So go to your ticket, update it, and post it in the fucking chat. Give me your actual 6-digit passcode so that I can recover this phone right now. And because I need my parts, because I got another 7 Plus here. If you give me your passcode, then I can do this other one that I think is TriStar. All right, let's see. Let's see, what else is in here? Underdog was at the pound. Yes, he was. I think with all the trouble, he should be renamed Underfill. Underdog is funny, because we got him as a tiny little puppy, like holding your hand size, and he looked like he was gonna die. Like that night, he's all sneezing and roomy, and we had, at the time, 2 other pugs, which one of them got hit by a car back at another house that we lived on. That was a weird pug. And then Pug, my beloved Pug, lived for like 12 years, and then she lost the use of her legs. It was really sad. All right, Amscope camera. Did you find Underdog? We're just going straight into the MacBook. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. Talking about microscopes. iPad rehab, won't a soldering iron work too since the caps are so small? No, not with the underfill. It's like a glue. It would be like trying to take something out of super glue. And you don't want to put heat there because you don't want to bother everything else. All right. I wonder if someone can remove it with a micro pencil. That would be really difficult and you'd fuck up your micro pencil tip for sure. All right, scrolling back. The jaws of life will get it out. Rip it up. Use your hobby knife. X-Acto. Rip it out. Exactly. Yes, that's the way to do it. Professional. All right. The trouble with the freeze spray method, says Leslie, is the thing getting hot isn't necessarily the faulty part, but it can help narrow down the area. That is true. That board is really sweating the surgery. Yes. All right. Things get hot when they're not meant to is a sign of failure. Yes. New table set up. You got Paul Daniels. Have to check that out. I've always hated that cap. Well, now I hate him too. Actually, I love him. I mean, he makes a nice, easy recovery. Get the Lewis drill. iPad rehab, won't a $100 or $200 thermal camera be easier? Nope. I mean, really, a thermal camera, and even the expensive ones, would not have been able to differentiate that cap from the adjacent one. Short is in the PCB itself. Dremeling required. Nope. Why is she using freeze sprays? And it's an attempt to capture something out of RAM. Nope. All right, so we've talked about underdog. Winter has arrived. The big guy right below the chip. What? We're injecting VCC main. Yes. All right, I'm going to scroll down and see if Matt W has given me his password. Tell me yes. Come on, Matt. Come on, Matt. Well, let's see. Nice videos like the Samsung one. Yes. Okay. Ooh, he got a passcode. Let's see. Let's see if we can get this to get recovered. That would be awesome if it could recover right now. We have a big line in the data recovery queue, and I believe this is Rush. Yes, Rush. All right, Matt. All right, let's see if he's got a new one. We all know. I don't get it. I guess he'll have to change that now so that he can protect himself from what exactly? That's what I don't get. I got a sad email last night from someone that was referred by an old friend from grad school who had lost a phone in a cab in Cuba, and so immediately went to iCloud and put it in lost mode so that, you know, nobody could get his data. Nobody's got your passcode. Nobody's going to get your data anyway. And he didn't really count on the benevolence of human strangers, which people really are nicer than you think. They really are. I've lost my phone in a cab before and somebody gave it back to me. And I really think that if you give people a chance, that you'd really be surprised. Bad things happen, sure, but a lot of good things happen. So this guy got his phone back and he was super excited. So he went and got a new SIM card and he had all of his vacation pictures on there. And he then, you know, plugged it into iTunes, and it, I think I dropped the battery off of that. Let me lay it down. So he plugged it into iTunes, but because he'd enabled lost mode, it instantly rekeys the encryption. So he lost all of his pictures from Cuba and stuff like that, just because of hypervigilance about security. I personally don't think that Matt should be worried about the fact that anybody watching this stream all over the world knows what the passcode is on a board that's sitting here at iPad Rehab. And if we recover it, I'll be happy to change it to anything else. All right, so I'm going to see if I can try this passcode when it comes up again here. Come on, boot, you can do it. You can do it. The bulk of this recovery video, it's going to end up being a long video now. That's going to be all hanging out, waiting to see if Matt knows his passcode. Got it. You got it, Matt. Yay. All right, so I'm going to end there, and I'm going to move this over, and we're going to recover your data. So it looks like you're going to be getting some good news tomorrow, Matt, so congratulations. That is going to be it for our stream.